Hello, my name is Madison Wise, and today we're going to be discussing multiculturalism in the classroom and why this is important for all of the students we encounter as teachers and how we can make this part of our classroom on a daily basis. First, we want to start with what is multiculturalism, and this term is defined as the preservation of different cultures or cultural identities within a unified society, such as a state or a nation. So on a more global scale, this means that we are respecting one another and the differences that we have within our cultures and races and ethnicities, and just overall how we choose to live our lives and the differences among us. The overall goal in multiculturalism is to promote acceptance and really appreciating the diversity we see among one another. So the next question that you might ask is why? Why does multiculturalism affect us on a global scale as well as in the classroom? And in 2012, the number of internet users increased by 8.8% to 2.4 billion people. Now that means that a lot of people around the world are having more access to what each other is doing across the world, across countries, as well as on a more local scale of what's happening right next door. So this increase in technology is really allowing for people to become more connected and see more about what each other's doing, and is really exposing us to a lot of things that in the past we haven't been able to see or hear about. Now, what's really interesting is that mobile internet usage in 2009 was seen at 0.9 of 1%, and now in 2015 this has increased to 15%. What this means is that people's access to the internet is right in the palm of their hands. It's on their phones, and people are using these devices at work, on the way to school, while they're working out, while they're on a walk, and so there's really no end to when and where people can communicate. And this increase in communication just leads to exposure to all different kinds of cultures and allows for people to experience things they've never been able to experience. And multiculturalism is a way to make sure that everyone understands that these differences are okay and that we should accept and appreciate one another. Additionally, if you look at the charts on the bottom of the screen, we see the U.S. population breakdown in 2010 and how, while there is a majority of whites seen on the right, if we look to the left, the national population is definitely in a state of change. And we see that while the population was mainly a non-Hispanic white community, we are seeing a trend more towards a 50-50 population change, and even the minorities becoming, in 2017, the majority. And so this change is really pushing schools and the community towards a multiculturalism perspective so that we can work together and be able to appreciate the differences so that we can move forward as a society. So quickly, we want to state what the goals of multiculturalism in the classroom are specifically. So as we have students, we want to make sure that we are creating a safe and accepting learning environment so that everyone is able to be successful in their learning and that no one is stopping them by making them feel afraid. We also want to increase awareness of global issues, so making sure that students know what's going on in the world around them and what struggles other people are having to increase empathy. We want to strengthen that cultural consciousness, so being aware that people are different and knowing some background about how and why people do things differently. Strengthening intercultural awareness, so making sure that we're working with one another. Also, teaching students that there are multiple historical perspectives. So a big one I hear about a lot is whenever teachers are going over the history of Christopher Columbus and the founding of America, and a lot of people see issue in discussing Native Americans and how it all primarily comes from a white perspective of how Christopher Columbus and his crew perceived Native Americans and not so much how Native Americans felt about the Europeans coming and exploring their homeland. We also want to encourage critical thinking, so not just giving kids one viewpoint to look at, but encouraging them to form their own opinions and think critically about the information that they're receiving from their teachers. And ultimately, we want to make sure that we're preventing prejudice and discrimination. I think that by doing this step in preventing prejudice and limiting people's ability to discriminate against one another, we can cross a lot of these other things off the list. So if there's one thing I would say that would have to be most important, I would just say preventing prejudice and discrimination can do things like strengthen cultural consciousness and increase awareness of global issues, because people from those different cultures will discuss it and people will have a more interest in different cultures and not just being so focused on what's happening in their lives. Now I want to move to transformational multiculturalism, and Anna Louise Keating, who wrote this article on transformational multiculturalism and how she feels that this is what we need within the classroom. It's more of a movement and an idea that she thinks that will spark interest in creating multiculturalism and how we do that. So she states that the three things we need are a radical change, both collectively as a classroom or as teachers or as a nation, to make multiculturalism a focus, and also on an individual basis. So individually, people need to make changes to their family or to their own lives to make sure that they're promoting multiculturalism and not condoning things like prejudice or discrimination. Secondly, she talks about an exploration of multicultural themes in the classroom and how teachers need to make that a part of their curriculum, and they need to make sure that it's an important aspect of their teaching to not just have one unit on multiculturalism, but make sure that it's implemented in pretty much every part of their teaching. And thirdly, a development of new practices. So she states that the scientific community at large needs to do more research into how we can promote multiculturalism in the classroom and what things we need to be doing that will make them best changes and what things people respond to the most. During her article, she starts off with a story talking about her son and how she was wearing arrow earrings and how he perceived these as warrior earrings, and that this is kind of what sparked her decision to write about this topic and make sure that everyone knows how important multiculturalism is for students, because she noticed that her own son was falling into stereotypes and that part of his learning of history, like we discussed earlier, was limiting his knowledge on differing historical perspectives as well as looking at global issues. So her idea in creating this transformational multiculturalism movement is really working on your individual self, and teachers taking an active role in making sure that they're promoting multiculturalism, as well as the community at large, making sure that this is an important thing to our community so that we can promote acceptance within our society. Next, we want to discuss the how-to. So we've talked a lot about why this is important and how this affects our community, but now we want to discuss how you, as a teacher, can make sure that you're promoting multiculturalism in your classroom. And first, I want to play a short video. It's about 2 minutes that talks about multicultural education and how it's local.
For me, the outcome of multicultural education is that it's local. You know, it's not something you wait and pack in your suitcase to go on vacation. It's something that you pull out and, you turn on the TV, or you listen to a song on the radio, or you go out in your neighborhood and you speak it. I have some pictures that we start the year in 8th grade with. I just show a few photos of a bakery, so La Panadería de Guatemala, that we put up, and we're like, where do you think this is? What do you see? ¿Qué en la foto y dónde está? At first I was like, oh, a couple kids said Guatemala. They're like, oh, maybe it's in, Guatemala somewhere. Maybe it's in Mexico. And then one kid's like, I know that bakery. It's like, I've been past that bakery. That's in Providence. The program overall has a philosophy of immersion as the method of instruction and social justice as focus for what we're trying to teach. We started a really fantastic project that I just love, where we connect the 8th grade students. So now these are kids who have studied, most of them have studied Spanish since 5th grade, immersion, so they feel pretty comfortable in the classroom for the most part. And what we do is we connect them with adult English language learners in Providence. And the kids get to be pen pals first with an adult who's learning English. So they're writing letters in English and in Spanish and learning about each other. And then we connect the kids and they get to meet. And it is amazing to see the kids.
So I really like that video. It talks about how this teacher has promoted immersion within her classroom and how she really thinks that getting kids involved in the community is what allows for multiculturalism to happen. Additionally, promoting an awareness of cultural norms and immersion, like she said, creating lesson plans that limit assumptions and create openness, and really going beyond the textbook and creating school activities or events that create a society that students don't normally get to feel, and allowing for them to experience that on a first-hand basis. Ultimately, I think the best way that we as teachers can promote multiculturalism is through example. I think that you can teach a lot during the school day, but just treating one another with respect and correcting students when they do things that are hurtful or harmful to promoting this multiculturalism is really the best way to promote multiculturalism in the classroom and make sure that as a society we're becoming more accepting. And this concludes my presentation on multiculturalism in the classroom. And I have a few questions down below if you would like to answer, and thank you for listening.